Always good to see you.
Same, dude.
You were at Bragg before me, right? By like a couple weeks?
Yep. A little bit before you.
So that was, God, what, it was 99, 2000?
Yep. I got there early 2000.
Yeah.
Like right at.
So 25 years ago, if I told you, hey man, 25 years from now, we're going to be sitting across from you in a podcast studio.
No.
And you're going to be one of my guests.
No.
Both of us would have been like, go fuck yourself.
No, not, yeah, absolutely. You know, what's the funny thing? I was thinking the other day, though, is like, here's what's funny is, you know, and I'm sure we're going to touch on a little bit more of this later, but I vividly remember, you know, at some point after we kind of knew each other a little better and stuff, you know, and I planned to get out and go do my, you know, I wanted to work in radio, and which I did for a while in college. But, you know, used to joke, one of my nicknames back then was Wody. Had a lot. I
still have you in my phone as well.
I've had a lot of nicknames, and yeah, you used to always joke about like, you know, I'm gonna make my first million writing a book. When you become a famous DJ, I'm gonna write a book called Wody's Words, so people can understand what in the hell you are actually saying and what your vocabulary means. You know, like what your words mean.
I still have that journal with all of Wody's words in it.
And now here we are, like.
Because you would just say there were you had where did you grow up?
The border of Louisiana.
That's right.
Texas and Louisiana.
Yeah, you had that. You just had this like almost like a Theo Von kind of vernacular.
Know, I never knew who Theo Von was until a handful of years ago, actually on an Afghanistan rotation, and we had some Georgia National Guard dudes attached to us, and somebody was like, "Bro, do you know who Theo Von is? Like, you could be his brother." And I was like, I have no idea who this person is.
You would just throw out like some zingers, and I'd be like, dude, what does that mean? Like, even I'm a smart guy, but even in context, I just wrote everything down.
I still get that.
And then, we were just like fucking busting each other's balls one night, and I was like, Wody's Words.
Yeah. Man,
I'll tell you what. I'll pull out that journal. I'll write them down. You should definitely make that.
I think I missed my window of opportunity to be in famous.
I would just start an Instagram of Wody's Words and just be like, hey, if you can decipher this, you can go do crypto with NSA.
Right.
Right.
Thought.
It's like how they use like World War II. Didn't they use like the code talkers was actually like an ancient. It was like a Navajo.
That's
something.
We're getting back to those times where we actually may need to, not speak in plain English anymore. Maybe Wody's Words will be again. Right, I think we're on something. We'll talk about that after.
No free ads. It's good to see you, man.
You too, man.
You reached out about the it used to be called FitOps. It's now the University of Health Performance.
Yes.
I thought it was like a High Rocks thing, but it's actually a training course.
Right. Yeah. So it's again, kind of going way back, man. It's kind of funny. I got there and they asked, like, how did you find out about us? And, of course I was like, well, I mean, I got approved to go, I applied way back, like right before COVID to go.
So is this like where like the combatives instructors and like the fitness trainers would go for like the units to like kind of bring that intel back to?
So there are people doing that now. Like I actually ran into a bunch of people who were there kind of, still on active duty. Obviously I'm still active and bringing some stuff back. But initially I think it was just more of, like trying to find a niche for veterans, because they do, kind of the mindset that they look at is, we're all trainers in some regard. It's like, hey, are you a trainer? And it's like, well, no. And it's like, well, do you have a brother? Do you have kids? Have you been, and at some point, all of us have trained, someone. So, they found a need, for, something that was actually sustainable for veterans. And, I think when I reached out to you, I told you, I mean, you know me, you've known me for a while. Like I'm going to stand on a mountaintop and scream that I'm a veteran, for everybody to hear. Like, that's just not me. That's not my thing. But, this actually sounded like, pretty interesting. So I'd looked into it, got accepted, and then COVID happened and kind of everything kind of fell apart and the world went to hell in a handbasket for a little while, and just kind of put it on the back burner. I reapplied and another class got canceled because COVID just kept going on, whatever freaking iteration it was, COVID.
It's here in Texas?
18.0. So it's in Arkansas now. they used to travel, but it's not far outside of Bentonville, Arkansas. It's kind of the land actually splits. Arkansas and Oklahoma it's actually on the border of both. And anyone who knows me knows how I feel about Oklahoma. I love people from Oklahoma, but I don't do real well, north of the Red River. It's not my place.
Those are not your people?
Yeah. So like, I mean, I love the people, but I'm just like, I get, just the word Oklahoma just kind of makes me a little weirded out, But anyway, so, I got up there and I'm like, oh God, I'm in Oklahoma. But no, man, it was,
we're in Delaware.
Yeah, just pretend, earmuffs. I'm not here. I'm not here. But we got there and so the main focus and kind of looking back when I first applied, I really was looking at it from like, all right, I'm going to go and kind of hone my physical training skills. Cause you do learn a lot of things. You get a lot of hands-on training on like actually, being a physical trainer, creating programs, working with people, doing all that kind of stuff. And that was really my focus back in the day.
Is it like an accredited program? Like if someone's like a trainer at like Equinox, they're going to be like an NSA, whatever.
So what's funny is I think they're actually like some of the way it got started actually kind of happened, back in the day with some, people at Equinox, they kind of met there. But so right now there is UHP has their own personal training certificate that you get when you leave, you test for and all that kind of stuff. They're working on accreditation right now to kind of get that into the pantheon of all the other, physical training certificates that you can get.
Yeah, like On It will have like a kettlebell course and you'll get like On It certified in a steel mace or a
you do
something.
get you get the ability to test for the ISSA certification when you leave. But I think really at the end of the day, man, like it's just kind of, it's a place where, you get to, unlike a lot of the other programs, you actually get to get hands-on, like working with, clients and like creating programs. And it's just a bit of a little more in-depth. One of the main guys that is kind of in charge of the programming and everything actually worked quite a while with the Thor 3 program.
Yeah.
Which is tied to, special forces groups. I think he was, he worked out of First Group or something. So it's kind of got a little, of that kind of idea, tied into it. He comes from a strength and conditioning background prior to that. So it's not just, you're not going to leave there kind of like your typical, guy at Gold's Gym who doesn't really know anything.
Right. And is it like more CrossFit focused? Because I feel like CrossFit was like born from military application, right? Like the 8 count, the burpee is just an 8 count push up.
Oh God.
Kipping is like exactly how it would be if you were like on the side of a bow of a boat. You had to kip yourself up to get a muscle up is pulling yourself up and over.
So they do take some of the so this is really kind of really it goes into everything. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of it, I think, is they touch on everything. It is kind of more of a, kind of a tactical fitness where you are doing a little bit of, lifting with, with some cardio and with some,
Dude, look how long it took them to change the APFT.
Oh, and it's still bad. It's still a hot mess, and they're going to change it again, and then they'll change it again, and then they'll change it again. And, I mean, it's better than it was. But it's still
they're always a generation behind.
Yeah. Oh man, wait. I mean, we were complaining about it 20 years ago.
Dude, our battle drills were still like sneak up, take out a bunk. It was like Vietnam era tactics.
Yep. Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, congratulations, we're gonna go fight in Afghanistan now. It's like I remember like being in Ranger School and like, here's how you train associate. Like, here's a ravine, here's a valley, and here's a ridge. And, if you go too far, and then you get to Afghanistan, they hand you a map. It's just a white sheet of paper with grid lines on it. And we had this, like, old school, like that first generation Garmin.
Oh, yeah.
Because we had the embedder that had a battery life of maybe, like, 90 minutes.
Yeah, we had the plugger, and then some people had their own Garmins. It's funny because I tell that story all the time with, still a little bit now, but, especially back in the Q course days where, I laughed because it was like, dude, I had that 6-year break in service and I came back to the Army, and one of my first like drills or whatever was, a CLS course, and they're like passing out tourniquets. And I'm like, whoa. what is this? And two, I can't use a tourniquet. That guy's going to lose a limb. You know what I mean? And then, and it was funny because it had changed so much in that 5 or 6 years, man. And I laughed because, in the Q course, I told some of my guys, I was like, dude, I legit, like, when we deployed to Afghanistan in 2002, like, we didn't have tourniquets. Like, tourniquets were still like a no-no. We had the little...
A tourniquet back then was like if you were going to lose the leg.
Exactly. Like, you knew they were going to lose it.
Like, there was none of this, oh, no, it's good for an hour. Yep. Like, 90 minutes, you have whatever you need to... Yeah.
You put it on.
You put it on, it's like you put a T on them, it's just basically a death sentence.
And we still didn't have cat tourniquets. I was like, no, man.
We didn't have Asherman chest seals.
We had the little thing with the... cravat and some sticks. And, my joke, I don't remember if it's really, if it's real or not, because everything gets a little fuzzy. It's been a while. We drank a lot in the 80s, Deuce, but
I caveat everything with, like, I'm pretty sure none of this is true, but the story I've been telling is this.
Yeah. It's like, I'm like, man, I remember landing, like, and like, we landed at, at Kandahar Airfield or whatever. And I remember, like, walking off the bird and just kind of like looking around, like, man, where the fuck am I going to find a stick? You know what I mean? Like, because we were still doing sticks and rags, and it was,
right. Yeah. Go to a tree branch, snap something off, take the bottom of your t-shirt, secure the limb.
That was it, man. And then, fast forward, I don't know, 12 years or whatever, and I'm in the Q course and we're getting ready to, move out to Robin Sage. And, one of the medics on my lane was like, it's like, man, they said we can't use American stuff. We're going to have to figure out like this sticks and rags things. And I was like, sticks and rags? You mean like what we were doing 10 fucking years ago, bro? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's not that old of an idea. Like we just...
Do you watch, we'll get back to this, but a little Spencer Coursen sidebar.
Oh, yeah.
Are you watching The Pit?
No. So someone messes me about it and told me to watch it, but I haven't.
It's so good. It's ER meets 24.
Oh, yeah.
But everyone I know who is in the medical profession or was an 18 Delta like you or a corpsman or whatever, like, dude, this shit is legit. Like, down to like what the color of the that's on the vial if they're like taking blood or the doses that they're telling people to give out. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched it, but there's like a mass casualty event in this hospital. But the guy who is, I forget his name, the guy who is serving as like the technical director, like on the medical side, went around to all of these hospitals, like went to Hopkins, went to the hospitals that in Columbine, went to the hospitals in Las Vegas, anywhere where there was like the hospitals like in New York and New Jersey, like during 9/11. And he basically said, write them through an AAR, an after action review. It was basically, hey, what do you wish you had? Or what would you do differently if you did it today? And he basically took all of those concepts that all of these people wished that they could have done and then incorporated those concepts into what this facility does during a mass casualty event. Designated triage sections, color identifying people with slap bracelets. You know that you are only going to have so much blood, so they only get it's 2 liters per patient, and if we can't, we hope they can hold on until the OR gets in. And they're basically saying that this may be the first time that a television show has introduced life-saving strategies that could be put into real-world practice. Which I thought was amazing.
Well, no, definitely.
But I say that because there are certain times where there's a combat, there's an 18 Delta on the show who is now doing his residency, I think, or maybe fellowship, whatever. I don't know what the structure is. But they start running out of shit. And he's like, oh, well, we can just use this. We can just use that. Like starts what you used to have to do in the field when he's like, oh, I can do this shit in my sleep.
Yeah. I mean, it's always...
So, I mean, there is a baseline for that stuff. It's like, digital watches are great, but you still need to know how to tell time.
100%. 100%. I mean, it's kind of the same for, I mean, it's still the same. And I mean, obviously I'm not, like not going to try to put any bad juju in the air or whatever, but it's like, assuming there is a war in our future, it's going to be so different from
There's absolutely no likelihood of that happening, and everyone loves us.
Yeah, right. It's going to be such a different battlefield, from so many perspectives. But talking about just the medical,
it's certainly not going to be with a called Mina.
No.
In the next 5 years.
No, absolutely not.
Never happened.
You know?
Everyone read a book called 1 Second After by William Forsythe.
But I think, you know, like exactly that, man. A lot of us, you know, myself included, you know, gotten pretty spoiled, you know, with being in Afghanistan for as long as we were, and just being able to have everything you wanted, you know, like being able to, you know, I could get on the phone and be like, hey, bro, I need blood. And I would have blood delivered, if not that day, the next morning. You know what I mean? And
because the resupply was just so readily available.
Yeah, it was just that easy. You know, I kept it, and then I'm like, it's getting close to expiration. Let me order some more. You know, it's bizarre, you know, to think like, when I first got there, it was weird, and then it was normal, and now, like, kind of looking back, it's kind of weird again, you know, where it's just like, I get on the phone and be like, hey, bro, send me a couple, you know?
Yeah, but, like, do the younger guys know the old stuff?
So they, you know, they still teach it a little bit. They touch on some of it. You know, obviously, kind of like everybody, man, like we're all kind of having to get back to those basics because a lot of those things have been kind of, you know, forgotten a little bit. I think just across the board. Luckily for our community, you know, it's like, I mean, you know, as well as anyone does, like at the end of the day, everybody thinks like, oh, this is cool and that's cool and this is cool. But really what makes all these people like good at their jobs is just being able to do the basics. Like that's it, man. Fundamentals. And if you can't do those
it's like
things.
That with everything. Like best MMA fighters, fundamentals.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Best basketball player, fundamentals. The best this, fundamentals.
Yeah. I mean, it you know, like that's really the building that foundation, you know, like if you can go to as many Gucci schools and as many courses and learn as much stuff as you want, but if you still don't really know the why or how they got to those things to be able to apply, like to know why you were applying.
I see this all the time when I like teach, you know, like tactical courses, like guys go out and they'll go out and buy an AR-15 and have all this shit tricked out, but they still don't understand like fundamentals.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing, you know, I mean, I've seen it with, you know, law enforcement agencies and stuff like that I've worked with. And, you know, you have some of these guys and they'll go to, you know, this Gucci school or that Gucci school to go, you know, to learn CQB or something, for example. Well, you've got a team full of, you know, 10 guys.
With CQB schools are just popping up left and right right now. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
And it's insane, man. I mean, it's cool. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's awesome. Like, especially for those guys. I think
but it doesn't make a difference if you're the only one that knows what you're doing.
Exactly. And that's the problem. That's where, you know, they get a little bit of money and they're like, well, we got a team of 10 or 12. Well, we'll send these 2 guys and they'll go. And then next year they get money and they send 2 guys to a different school. Well, now you've just got all these people and they're like, oh, well, this guy says to do this.
One of the reasons our squad, specifically our team, got sent out on doing so much shit is because we didn't even have to talk to each other.
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually was thinking about that story on the way.
Right? We could just go like, and like you would know to go left and Gogus would know to go right and blah, 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 and bound around and Overwatch and this, that, and the other thing. Yep. We didn't fucking have to say shit.
Nope. No. And that's the thing. It's
but doing CQB is very similar. Like
100%.
You gotta, it's great that you have a ninja, but if the other ninjas don't know what the ninja's going to do.
Yep. And I mean, the thing is like you can, I think the problem is like you can't just jump, you know, like here, you know, like you have to, the guys that are teaching that course, like, don't get me wrong. There are people out there, obviously, you know, I know like that are fundamentally better than I am. Fundamentally, you know, like they've done so much and they're, you know, obviously like really good at what they do. But like, if you're just going to kind of like try to steal a couple of their things off of YouTube or like go to a little course and then like, well, you're just skipping over everything that those people did to get there. You know what I mean? So like, you don't know why they're doing those things. So you don't know how to put it into practical application. Right. You know, it's like, well, no, this is right. And it's like, well, maybe.
But why are you doing it?
Exactly. Why? Tell me the why. And most people can't. Once they start, you know, they want to go be the best. They immediately want to be the best. And it's like, cool, man, but you can't just be the best. Like, you have to walk yourself to that.
Yeah, Tom Satterley was on Sean Ryan, maybe? I don't remember. And he was like, you know, I came up, I think he was with the Rangers, maybe. Anyway, when he got called up to the unit, and he was like, I was the CQB guy and he's like, I got to the unit and they were like, just hold these chem lights and try to just throw chem lights and try to keep up. And he was like, what? He was like, just throw chemical ice and try to keep up. And he was like, these guys moved with a level of proficiency that I didn't know was possible. And it was all because they were just dialed the F in.
Yep. Just repetition, man. It's everything.
So you put in your packet again after COVID's, knocked you back down a couple times, and you get out there. What was your initial impression?
Man, so
was yours in Arkansas as well?
It was. So they're all in Arkansas now, man. It's a beautiful campus. The gym, the dome itself is amazing.
How is this funded?
So it's they've partially, like nonprofit stuff. They've recently got accepted by the VA to do some of their stuff. Like people are able to use a GI Bill now to come out there. But they've got, sponsorships with, C4, Team R,
the
Team
drink
RWB.
C4, not the plastique.
Yes, yes, the drink C4. Like, although, I mean, it'd both be pretty awesome, but a
C4 demo at the C4 gym would be pretty. Have you been to the C4 gym?
No.
It's pretty cool.
Oh man, I want to go now.
Yeah.
Because they've got a little section there at the, on that campus where they do some stuff. So they've got like a little room where they, occasionally, I guess they'll run people through some tests and stuff like that. But
I got a buddy over there. I'll put you in touch. See if I can get you over for a run through.
Yeah, dude. So that campus, man. There's just C4 fridges everywhere.
That's cool.
And me, I'm a cat. Like I literally just left a C4 can in the car. Like I'm a caffeine guy. So
how long is it's all veterans by veterans for veterans?
Yep. So all there are some of the instructors there are not veterans, but kind of they've been there long enough. They have ties to the community. Right. But everyone that's going through the course is a veteran. And are these guys mostly guys that are just coming out, or like guys who have gone through some kind of transition? So a little bit of both. We had a few people that are still on active, like, one or two is getting ready to get out. A few other, like one guy, I think he's still got a while left. Kind of all walks of life. Like we had Coast Guard people there, some Army people, Navy people, Marines. Some people had been out a year or two. Some people had been out a decade. Wow. So it's really kind of a mixed bag. But it's really, I initially got there and, I've kind of been going through a pretty big, change in my personal life. My life is kind of, in a different place right now. So, I made that drive. I was like, I'm not going to fly. I'm going to drive. It's like 8 hours, So I drove and I got there and like, even at the last second, I was just like, dude, I don't know. Do I really want to spend 3 weeks here? Do I just want to go home? Drove through and, kind of got there and it was, the first day or so we did some physical training stuff, but then they also like started kind of getting into like the mental health aspect and like communication and stuff like that. And there was that part of me that was like, dude, I came here to get away from therapy for a couple of weeks. You know what I mean? I was like, I came here to lift weights and, like learn some stuff and eat, and just, get big. And, and I get there and then it's, not like super woo woo, thankfully. But there still was just that moment where I was like, bro, I'm not here to talk about my fucking feelings. You know what I mean? Like, I don't do that, like even my friends know, like my joke, which I'm trying to change now because of this experience. I'm like, all right, man, I'm trying to change. But my running joke is always anytime somebody asks, wants to like tries to dig into my life, I'm like, hey, bro, I pay a therapist. So you don't have to listen to this. You know what I mean? Like that's just where I'm at, like I don't want to talk about that with you. We'll talk about fun stuff, like I pay a therapist to listen to me whine, like, and so I got there and I'm just like, dude, I don't like, what am I doing? And I'm like, well, I did drive. My car's like not that far. I could easily grab my bags and sneak out in the darkness of night and just,
I want to just pause you for 1 second.
Yeah.
I want to put a caveat in here because there may be some veterans who are listening. I don't talk about my feelings. I don't talk blah, 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 blah. You don't talk about your shit with everyone. Right. You're not an open book about your shit.
100%.
But there are trusted people that you talk to.
Yes. And
you and I have had some very nice, appreciative drop-ins.
Yes.
You've helped me. I've helped you. You are also talking to a professional.
Right.
You are not against
not
getting the help you need. You're just not going to share that shit with the world.
Right.
Which I respect.
Right.
But I don't want someone who may misconstrue that.
No. Yeah.
Not if I'm anti-help.
No, like, dude,
I just want to, and I know you're not. I just want to make sure that's very clear, because there's at some point there's some veteran out there who is listening to this to get direction on how they can be helped, and I want to make sure that we're an example for that.
Yeah, I mean, because I think you know, is like, I was that veteran at one point. You know, I was that person. Like,
we all were.
I never would have talked to anyone.
That wasn't getting help and talking to people was not modeled for us.
No.
It was like getting PTSD was almost like a badge of honor.
Right.
You know, and then becoming an alcoholic was how you dealt with it. And then you had a hollow point for when you went to do the job.
Oh, God. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I remember those days. But, so I think the good thing, and then I think, kind of going back to earlier when I was talking about, like, initially I really went to that course and was just thinking, like, I'm going to go here and learn how to, hone my physical training skills and kind of that kind of thing. Like, and then I got there and I'm like, dude, this is like talking about feelings, and that's not really what I was looking for. But at the end of the day, I think, like, I'm not a religious guy at all, but like it was what I needed at that point in time. I went there partially to get away from therapy, but I think getting there and like actually being able to like stand across from people and like hear that people had similar, experiences, similar, things like that. So like, yeah, I went in, man, fully. So for everybody listening that, is worried about talking to people and putting your stuff out there. Like, I was that guy. Like, I got there even, the beginning of that, which was a few months ago, I still was just kind of like keeping it inside. And then it was just like, you know what, man, and it doesn't have to be weird. You know what I mean? Like, we talked about life. Everybody has similar experiences. Everybody handles things differently.
Is it co-ed?
It is co-ed. Yep.
Two things I think are really important. Hearing someone else share their story about being human gives you permission to share your story. 100%. About being human. Like, I used to think that vulnerability was like, you don't cry, you don't do this, but vulnerability is really sharing something with someone who can use it against you and not knowing if they will or they won't.
Yeah.
And when you can find yourself in a community of people who are not afraid to be vulnerable, knowing that shit can be used against you, but having, after done so, knowing that they won't, is so fucking cathartic.
Dude, it is. Yeah. I mean, it's, nowadays, especially, with everything that's out there and, everybody's got a camera in their pocket 24/7. And, I've got the Gucci, like Ray-Ban Meta sunshades. Like, you can, it's just like you're being watched all the time, and so it is, sometimes everybody's a little hesitant, it's too hard to screenshot something or whatever, and everything can be used, thrown back in your face. Forever. Yeah, it never goes away, man.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, being there, some of the.
Can you imagine if we went through what we went through with freaking
oh, dude, there's no way. Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you because I won't speak on you. I don't want to put you in the same bubble as me, but I would definitely be in jail. Without
one cell, I'd be in the cell next to you,
without a doubt. I mean, I'm impressed I'm not in jail now as an adult, but had those cell phones and cameras, everything existed back then.
Yeah, I think our tech was like the MP3 player or something like that.
Oh yeah, that's another thing I joke about sometimes. I remember like gearing up for that Afghanistan rotation, and I remember like MP3 players that just come out, and I had one that was like, dude, it was like the size of a Discman. It took like 8 AA batteries, and I think it held like 80 songs.
I think you were the one that like taught me how to like rip songs from like from the internet. Was it Napster back then?
It was Napster
or some kind of like
LimeWire. Yeah,
LimeWire.
Man, just like virus after virus.
Oh God!
And it wasn't until someone came to me and he was like, "Hey man, you want to be a DJ when you get out, like, you probably shouldn't steal music." And I was like, wait, is this stealing?
It was so...
It never even crossed my mind. I was just like, oh, I'm just, because most of what I downloaded was not normal music anyway.
That was such an interesting time in the digital copyright, who owns what space, because it wasn't physical media.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
It was a weird.
Like, if I went to the store and bought their Nirvana album, Nirvana got 20 cents or $1 for every album that I bought. But when someone uploads it and disseminates it.
Yeah.
Like, who owns it? It's like, it was the equivalency of like, no, this is just the libraries.
Right.
And every time someone takes it out from the library, they don't get a royalty. The library bought it once. It's in the, but it was just kind of like, yeah, but what if you took a fax of or like went to and took that book and then like, put it to the copier and like copy all the pages. Like, what is that a royalty? Like, it was like, so the whole world was completely different. No one understood anything.
And yeah, that's the thing is like, I don't think like,
and yes, we stole all that shit.
Yeah, like 100%. Like America, we stole a lot of music when we were, in the early 2000s. But, it was like, I never, until that guy said that, I never even looked at it like that. I was like, this isn't stealing?
I wasn't even that.
God, like, I never
would have been that forward thinking back then.
Yeah, it never crossed my mind. I was just like, oh, there's all this music on this thing called the internet that
So it's a 3-week program.
Yes.
How is like each week structured? Is it like a ground tower jump week or?
So the physical training part, kind of is. So we start out and I really love the way that they kind of structure everything. So we do, typically, so you're not just like death by PowerPoint. You'll do like some classroom stuff and then straight out into the gym where like maybe we'll do a class on teaching like Olympic lifting or, stuff like that. Every morning you typically have, most mornings you have like a group workout where everybody works out together and it's kind of like, you're kind of learning and exercising at the same time, a lot of kind of competition stuff. But yeah, it's definitely, so you start out with, kind of learning the basics. And then as you go, you kind of, you learn a little bit more about programming, which again, everybody kind of, shows up on a different level.
Yeah.
Some people, I've been programming for a long time.
For someone who may not understand what like programming means, explain it. And then if you could tell me something that you either learned or had a reframing of about how programming works.
So programming basically is just kind of, creating, your specific workout, so you can go online now and
so like on Monday, I'm going to do a push pull. I'm going to do chest and biceps. On Tuesdays, I'm going to do leg press and back lat pull downs. On Wednesday, I'm going to do tricep extensions and upright rows.
Yep.
So that you're hitting all the major muscle groups, but you're not overexerting them, and you structure out those workouts over the course of a week.
Yeah. So it's basically just, so structuring out over a week or over a longer period of time, kind of dependent on, it's really easy to get online now and find some stuff. But, really looking at like what you want as a person, what your goals are, the amount of time you have, the equipment you have, and all those kind of different things can really play a big hand in like figuring out exactly how that's put together. So sometimes it's not as easy to be, like, which, I still do it occasionally. Don't get me wrong. I love, I worship at the, the altar of Arnold, and the Arnold Bible is still on my bookshelf. And anytime I just feel like getting big and I have 3 hours a day to work
that
out.
Documentary of him. It was like, I had like, he was just talking about doing like just what he's going to do for arms. And it's like, I'm going to do this. 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 I'm like, man, that man is regimented.
Oh man, I did. Yeah. I did Arnold workouts for several years, back when I was a little younger, but I don't have the 3 hours a day, in the gym to spend anymore, unfortunately. But occasionally, I'll throw some of that in there just for funsies.
But I also think like programming is important because like if your goal is to get big and strong, that's one thing. If it's to get more, smaller and harder, it's gonna be another thing. If you want, and also I think it has a lot to do with like, why are you doing this?
100%.
Are you training for something? Are you looking to be aesthetically fit, or do you want to be fit?
Yes. And that's kind of, what we talked about with, CQB is the same thing. Like, tell me the why. I want to know the why for the client or whoever, whatever you want to, the person that you're trying to help out. But the person that, that is getting a program made from someone should probably also kind of ask the why, like, well, why are you having me do this? Can you explain to me why it's important to you? Because if you don't know a person's why, you can't really build something that's going to be beneficial to them, because I can be like, my why is, hey, I want to look good naked. I'm 43 years old.
Right.
But like, hey, if you're older and your why is, I want to be able to bend over to help my grandkids unwrap Christmas presents, that's drastically different, like, or, hey, I help a lot of people. I've helped a lot of people with typically with getting ready for like selection courses and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
If that's your why, like, well, the way I'm going to kind of help get you prepared for that is going to be way different than someone who's just like, hey, I want to be big, I'm a bodybuilder, I want to be big, I don't care about strength. Or then you've got other people who are like, well, I want to be strong and I don't really care about size. Or, hey, I'm a runner. There's just, everybody's got their thing. And
do they get into any of like the science at all on like, you want to have like this many in reserve or?
Yes. So there's, there are so many different, kind of
modalities or
like modalities on, like reps in reserve, or, some people, I guess the easiest and most tried and true way is still to go back to, your percent of your 1 rep max.
Right.
But I haven't done a 1 rep max in any exercise and probably, I don't make high school, maybe. Like I just don't do it. It's not my thing.
There's a couple things I would go through. It was like you had to be able to like do your body weight so many times.
Yep.
Or I don't know who it was, but there's like a new metric where if you're an adult male over 40, you should be able to do a dead hang for 90 seconds and then carry your body weight split in half in each arm for 1 minute.
Yes.
So basically, if you weigh 200 pounds, putting a 100-pound kettlebell in each arm and being able to walk for 1 minute. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So I ran myself through it the other day, and I cannot hang for 2 minutes. I can do 90 seconds. So, and then if I can change my grip, I can stay on the bar for 2 minutes. But just a straight dead hang for 2 minutes, not happening.
Yeah, so we did that test. We did a couple other ones. There's some other things
just carrying my body weight. I did it, but that minute was a long minute.
Oh, dude, that's so good though. Like being able to carry weight is, I mean, at the end of the day, like that's just it's hitting so many different things, body wise and everything else. Like, and it's something that, like you talked about CrossFit earlier, and CrossFit when it first came out was, functional fitness. And I think at one point it was, and then it just became like, training for the CrossFit games, not quite as functional anymore. But, what's more functional than freaking being able to carry, all your groceries from the car, to the house in one trip? You know what I mean? Like,
literally,
hey, man.
Like Mike Israel talks about that all the time, too. He's like, you want to be able to like pick something heavy up.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to push something heavy off you.
Yep.
You want to be able to pull yourself up, and you should be able to sprint for a good 90 seconds.
Yeah. And they've shown that one of the, obviously I'm not going to get into like super details, one, because I just don't have the, the literature in front of me, but they have shown that what you're talking about, the grip strength of just holding yourself up, that grip strength, oddly enough, I mean, it makes sense, I guess, but it still is kind of surprising when you hear it, is one of the best predictors of like longevity, so like that's where that 2 minute thing comes from. Like if you can hold yourself up for 2 minutes, it's, basically saying like, hey, you are, like you're at that level of like, fitness that kind of is going to give you a little bit of longevity.
It was like
in
quad
life.
Strength.
Oh yeah.
And then skeletal muscle. It's like, those are like the 3 indicators of long-term, or at least in terms of prevention of like the more crippling physiological ailments that'll hit you later.
Right.
But I mean, 200, like it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's still like, actually, that's a good question. Did this program get into nutrition at all?
Yes. So it touches on nutrition, and they haven't finished. They're working on the location or the building right now on the property, but they are in the process of standing up an actual nutrition course.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, they've actually, there's a chef there. Like if you talk to him, it's kind of like you and I. If you met him, you wouldn't know that he was, anyone from anyone. He's like the most genuine, just cool, down to earth dude. And then he starts like spouting off the amount of awards that he's won for, chefing or whatever. I don't know what it's called.
Chefing.
Like, like cooking some stuff up, I don't know. But, he's got all these like chefing awards. And I'm like, dang, man, like that's impressive. But, we get a couple of classes from him, on actually like cooking things. And, we did something where, like we made like our own, vinaigrettes and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And the food there was amazing. he did a wonderful job just kind of like, keeping us fed. Food was really good. And then we do a few other courses, just kind of PowerPoint stuff talking about food. And I mean, like,
it's really easy to eat healthy when someone else is preparing it for you.
That was the thing that we joked about, was like, man, like, got somebody cooking for us. I got unlimited C4, like, and we had cold plunges and saunas and, the Normatec squeezies and, hyper ice, hyper.
It's like every time there's like these actors that like have to go get ready for a Marvel movie and they send them away to 9 months just to like He-Man camp.
Oh, dude.
It's like,
no, that's so it's funny. I think I posted on Instagram and people were like, what are you on? And I got there and, we did an in-body scan and then
you walk around pretty jacked. You have always been.
I walk around
strong and lean.
Yeah, I mean, I walk around pretty lean. I've always, I joke, but I think it, goes back to just growing up real poor and all the nutrients and all the, the missed meals that I had back then. Now I'm just like, my body is like, I'm going to use everything you put in me. But I still, man, I think maybe because of that,
years of inconsequential intermittent fasting.
Exactly. I didn't know that was a thing
your body
either, didn't realize it by accident, but yeah. So we do.
That's the one thing that people get wrong about intermittent fasting. People are like, I'm doing intermittent fasting. I'm not eating from 12 to 8. I'm like, that's restrictive eating,
right? Like,
intermittent fasting is when you don't know when you're going to miss a meal.
Yeah. Like, my guys.
Why it's intermittent?
My guys at work laugh at me all the time because I'll literally be, we'll be in a car or something on like a call and and they'll, somebody be like, man, I'm starving, like I didn't eat breakfast this morning. And I'll be like,
good.
I'm like, man, I didn't, I'm like, dude, in my head, I'm like, man, I haven't eaten. I think the last time I ate was like, I had breakfast on like Tuesday. And they're like, bro, it's Saturday. I'm like, oh, like, I just get, you get that initial hunger and then it just kind of goes away. And some days I just forget, like, I'll just forget to eat for
I'll do a 36-hour fast like once a month, and the first 12 hours are always the hardest.
Oh, yeah.
After that, you're like,
once you're past that, man, like take a little nap.
It's all psychological.
Like, hey, you get hungry, take a nap, bro. Drink some water.
I'm glad you said it because you don't realize how much of those hunger cravings is just dehydration.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
You go pound a liter of water. You're not gonna be hungry anymore.
When I joke, I'm like, dude, I don't get hungry because, I mean, I drink a gallon of water and 5, 6, 7, 800 milligrams of caffeine a day, which I am not recommending. But
do you find that your workouts are impacted when you don't eat?
So
you're just so dedicated to.
I mean, they may be. I guess it kind of depends on what you're doing. Yeah. But I mean, I'm so kind of just used to working out first thing in the morning without food that I just it doesn't.
For years, ever since the service, got up, went to the gym first thing in the morning. There's like listening to like Huberman or somebody. I think it was Huberman. I don't know if it's like when you're sleeping, it's theta, and then when you first wake up, it's delta or delta theta, whatever it is. But I wake up now at 4:30 in the morning, and I just work. I literally wake up at 4:30, grab my laptop or my iPad or something, and I work from like 4:30 in the morning until 6, and that is the most productive 90 minutes of my day. I get 4 hours of work done in that 90 minutes. And then I'll go on the rest of the day. I actually found that like my other than when I do the podcast in the afternoons, my best workout time is like 2 p.m. That's when my energy levels are ideal, and I've gotten all the other stuff I need to get out of the way done. Because I'd be like getting up and going to the gym, and I'd start like doing this, and I have a lunch, and I wouldn't start working until like 2 o'clock.
Yeah, I can't. I'm the same way.
And then next thing I know, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like I do it all over again. So now it's like I go to bed at like 10. I'm up at 4:30. It's much more productive.
Yeah, dude, I get up at pretty much every day at 4 a.m. And during like the Q course, it was even earlier than that. And it's funny because I say the same thing. Like I wake up and my brain is working. It's like as soon as I'm up. So what I would do even throughout the Q course is Callahan was the only gym that was open super early in the morning. So I would get up. I'd wake up at like 3 a.m. I was over at Callahan at 4 a.m. to work out. I would, work out for a while. I would come home, help the wife and kids get ready for school and out the door. And then, then I'd go over to JSOM TC for, SOCM. We'd go to first formation and they would release everyone to go fight for all the gym equipment basically because we didn't do organized PT. Well, while everybody else was going to the gym, I'd already knocked mine out. So that's when I would study. My brain was still fresh, it's, 6:30 or whatever at that point. So I would do my pre-reading and all that kind of stuff at that point. And then I'd go to class when class started. And then the end of the day, most nights, I didn't even bring my books in the house. I'd go in, do dinner with the family, go to sleep early, get up the next day and do it all over again. On test days, I would wake up at the same time, but instead of going to the gym, if I felt like I needed to study, instead of going to the gym, I would study that early while my brain was fresh. And then I would go and, I remember being in class one day and somebody, because I take copious notes and I'm taking notes. And this guy's like, man, how do you stay awake in class? And I'm like, I don't know, man, I go to bed at like 8:30 at night. And he's like, man, I don't know how, dude. I was up until 3 a.m. studying. And I'm like, no, you weren't. No, you weren't. You were up until 3 a.m. looking at, fuzzy words on a book, on a page and drooling on it, but you weren't studying.
That is something that so many people get wrong. It's like, if you are not well rested, you are not going to perform well.
No.
And I see this all the time. I used to stay up and like, I just got to get this report done. And it would be up till like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Whereas if I just went to bed at 10 and got up at 4, I'd get this done in an hour.
Yep.
Like it doesn't, I don't work better under stress. I'm stressed while working.
Right.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah. It's that age old, just because you can doesn't mean you should. You know what I mean? Like, yes, we can all multitask. Well, I mean, I guess the jury's out. There are people now that are saying like, oh, multitasking isn't actually a thing. You're just like half-assing everything. But, whatever. At some point, I think we can all multitask to a degree. That doesn't mean you should always multitask, just because like, yeah, hey, bro, if I need to burn the midnight oil, then I will. But I don't like for what, like at some point you have to realize like, okay, now I've got to prioritize some things, like.
Yeah, hey, if you are not giving 100% to everything, if you're not giving 100% to what you're doing, then something is getting short.
Exactly. So you're multitasking. That's the fallacy of multitasking. Whether that's your fitness,
whether that's your sleep, whether that's your family, whether that's your love life, whether that's your finances, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, so what I found to really work for me was I block off 3 hours, 2 hours, 1, 1, 1. So whatever's most important gets 3 hours. So I know that it gets the full attention it deserves. Then I move to 2 hours. Do that. It gets all the attention it deserves. The other great hack was I lock the next day's calendar at 10 p.m. the night before.
Yeah.
So that next day, hey, you want to grab lunch? Can't today. Calendar's locked, but I know what I can do because I know how much energy expenditure is going to be required to accomplish all the tasks for today. If I add anything else to that, it's like adding water to wine.
Yeah.
And it dilutes the effectiveness.
I mean, I have a similar strategy with, when it comes to work. I think, now that I'm kind of like not, running things is always a loose term in the military because there's always somebody who's, telling you what to do. But to an extent, like I do have a lot of autonomy and a lot of flexibility with my schedule and the schedule for, the guys that I work with and stuff like that. And I kind of am like a firm believer now where it's like, we travel a lot. Guys are on the road. Guys are spending time away from their family. It's like, hey, dude, like if I can get you out a little bit early, I'm going to get you out early. So for me, I grew up with leadership that was like, like, no, everybody's got to sit here until 4 o'clock because what if we get an email saying that we need something, you know what I mean? And it was like, it'd be some, administrative task that someone forgot to tell everybody about. And I'm like the opposite. I'm just like, hey, bro, if it hasn't come in by like lunchtime, then it's not important. Like it can wait till tomorrow. Right. You know what I mean? Unless the house is on fire. And if it is, I'll be here to put it out and, we'll figure it out. But like, I don't need everybody sitting here just like anxiously awaiting, like just in case, the admin, decides like, oh, hey, you need to update. Like, no, man, that can wait until tomorrow. Like if
you and I have both sat in a room for long periods of time, just waiting to be told we could go home.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Just because someone told someone to not let them go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Whatever.
It's like take 15 minutes to 15 minutes to 15 minutes, and it's like, all right, dude, like, hold on, man. Why are we here?
It took hurry up and wait tool.
Why are we here an hour and a half early?
I want to put a bow on the the University of Health and Performance. Top 3 takeaways and top 3 reasons why you would recommend it to other veterans.
I mean, top three takeaways for me, like I said, I kind of went in with a decent working knowledge of, of how the body works, you know, and then programming in, you know, in itself and that stuff. But I still walked away with, you know, more knowledge, I think, in that area, and actually being able to, you know, kind of do some hands-on coaching and get critiqued, you know, like pretty hard critiques, you know, by some people that are very, you know, well-versed and have been around, you know, college strength and conditioning coaches and, you know, the Thor 3 program and some things like that. So really being able to kind of get that like live feedback that, I mean, you know, as well as I do, a lot of times in the civilian world, and I'm guilty of it as well, you know, that constructive feedback is kind of hard to give. Fortunately, in that community, it's very not hard to give. Like they are free with their constructive criticism. You know what I mean? So like that to me was great. Like, hey, I need to be slapped around a little bit. Like, you know, tell me what I'm messing up. You know, don't tell me what I did right, because
I know what I did right.
Yeah,
tell me how I can get better.
Yeah. You know, so that was good for me, kind of getting that, you know, that little bit of information there, and then, you know,
when they would give you that coaching, was the takeaway how they were coaching you, or that they were coaching you? Difference being, were they helping you to learn how to say something more effectively, or were they helping you to become more effective?
So a little of both, actually. So, you know, we did focus a lot on, you know, kind of like, hey, you need to make sure that your communication is clear and concise, and you are telling these individual people kind of like why you're doing these exercises, and then also kind of, you know, critiquing you and making sure you've been effective in, you know, how you either, you know, demo the exercise.
You're going to tell them how to do a deadlift and then ask for a back brief?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, so it was, you know, a little bit of both, man. Just, you know, really just, you know, they've got sheets that they go off of, and it's like they're watching your body language, your cues. You know, we've all got our little, you know, issues with hands, you know, doing like my first time I had like a stop. I'd made sure I had nothing in my hands, but then they give you a stopwatch, and then I'm like, don't even think about it. Next thing I know, I'm over here like swinging my stopwatch around, you know, just little things like that.
Spinner,
you know, I mean, I love fidget spinners, but
that's because we all have ADHD.
100%. I'm like, this is the only thing keeping me from like not hurting people sometimes. Like, so I have this ring on my finger. You see, I just play with it. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, this is. But
we're too alike.
But yeah, so I mean, I would take that away, and then, you know, again, man, I've never really considered myself, you know, I don't want this to come off like wrong or whatever, but I've never really been, you know, like I've never really lumped myself into like that, you know, that whole veteran community. But for the first time, I think in my life, like I felt it, you know what I mean? Like I felt like I actually had more things in common with a lot of those people than I'd ever really give myself credit for, you know, like,
is that because you're still operational, or is it because you're getting closer and closer to not being?
I mean, maybe a little bit of both. I think, I don't know, man. I think, you know, just I've always struggled.
Like, in fairness, like I still consider you operational.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I kind of like the veterans, like when you used to do it, but you don't do it anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I've always like struggled a little bit with like the, you know, putting labels on stuff, you know, because I just kind of, I was just kind of, you know, I hated being that guy, but I also, you meet somebody and they're like, oh man, so-and-so, man, you'd love him. He's a veteran. I'm like, I don't, like, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Like,
you know what I mean? So
there's a lot of assholes who serve.
100%, you know, and there are two of them in this room right now. But, you know,
1,000%.
It's, you know, so it's one of those things. It's like, I never really wore that badge, you know, like, but then I got there and it was just kind of like, you know, I still didn't really look at them as veterans, I guess. I just looked at them as peers, as, you know, like cohorts.
But if you want to help that community, you have to identify as them.
And that's exactly it, man. And I think, you know, I think there are a lot of, there are a lot of organizations out there that mean well, and, you know, probably some that don't, you know, that, you know, try to sell that veteran community and try to.
I didn't really start championing the veteran thing until my PTSD shit.
Yeah.
So because I was like with the government, I was like, that was my identity, you know, warrior, protector, you know, security guy. Yeah. I didn't really start adopting like the veteran mantle until I wanted to start helping veterans.
Right. And that's kind of where I think the important thing about that organization kind of lies is like they're actually like working to support, because not everyone that went through that course is going to leave and go be a personal trainer. Like, I mean, I love fitness. I don't know that I'm going to, ever like do that as like a full-time gig or anything like that. I enjoy it. I think it's a way to help people. I think it's, just a way to give back to the community as a whole. And then, if I can also lump in, that veteran community and find those people that were like you and like me, who, hid those mental health things and, we're scared to talk about them and things like that. It's like, hey, dude, like, we've talked about it before. Like, bro, my self-esteem is still shit, like for the most part, like I still have a lot of self-loathing and hatred and stuff like that I work through constantly, so to be able to like find people and be like, hey, bro, like I am right there with you, like I get it. Like I dread going to new gyms, like, and, people look at me and like, well, why? And I'm like, I just don't, I'm not comfortable. Like I go in and a lot of times that's why I work out at home quite a bit now, it's like if I move or go places, I just, those little bitty things where I'm just like, man, I don't know. I'm just not comfortable, and, I think finding.
Is that because you feel like an outsider? Where you just don't feel like you're.
I think, I mean, I feel maybe like an outsider to a degree. That's one of those things that I've really like kind of been trying to figure out is like exactly.
Yeah. Because I felt that way for a long time too, but I was almost like a social chameleon.
Right.
You know what I mean? I could mirror whatever environment I was in, and then I would go home and self-loathe.
Right.
Because I wasn't being my authentic self in whatever dynamic I was in. Yeah. I could fake the funk and I could play the part and I could act the role, right? But that wasn't me.
No.
And then when I came home, I hated the fact that I didn't have the courage or the self-love that I could show myself who I was to them. Yeah. With confidence and with clarity and with self-compassion.
Right. And it's funny because I feel like you were like in Arkansas with me, like standing across from the fire, listening to me talk, because like that's one of the things that I have struggled with. I mean, we talked about a couple of my, nicknames I've always had, and it never really occurred to me, but like even going back to, Sergeant Bauman back in the day used to say, oh, there's three versions of you. There's Chris Gregory, there's Sergeant Gregory, and then there's C. Greg is what they used to call me. And then, my first, detachment commander or whatever, my first ODA said the same thing. He would tell me all the time. He'd be like, hey man, like before I would go do something, he's like, hey, don't go full Jeezy, because I have, and I never really thought about it. And, when everything kind of got a little crazy in my life, I started trying to like look at things and try to figure out, who am I, like who am I as like a person? And I couldn't figure it out, man. And I mean, I still don't really know, but then you start looking back on your life and it's like at this point in my time, like I think we had a little, way different, but also very similar, upbringings, and I've always been that chameleon. Mm-hmm. And it's been what I've always considered my, my biggest asset, my best trait, and the things that, you and I have done in our careers and everything else, it's served me really well.
Yeah. Right up until it doesn't.
Exactly. Until you sit down and you're like, well, shit, who am I?
There's a Hawthorne quote. No man can for any considerable time wear one face to himself and another to the multitude without finally getting bewildered as to which one is true.
Oh, yep.
And that was definitely my problem. I could be anyone to anyone.
Yep.
But I didn't know who I was. When I needed me to show up, I didn't know who that was.
Yeah. Yep.
And that was and when I went through my shit and you don't have that anchor to rely on.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was, just kind of growing up, I kind of filled whatever role I needed to fill. I grew up where I grew up, outside of the projects, and that was who I was there. I was an honor student, and that's who I was. I flip-flopped back and forth in school between, the ghetto kid who was doing ghetto things and then the honor student.
You and I think that's why you and I bonded so early on.
Yeah.
Is that we could We could be academics or we could be street.
Yes. And and that's, again, served me really well.
Like you and I had no problem getting our hands dirty.
No.
But we could also hold a very, enlightened conversation about the ethics of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Or, the spice route that, riding from, Turkey to China.
I don't know anything about that.
How did we dispose of that bite? I don't know. We destroyed the shovels.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and it's funny because like we get so used to, you go and I did that, and then I was the medic on an ODA, and you're kind of like the team mom, then you become like, hey, don't do that, don't hurt yourself, and you're like in that mold, and then you've got your attached infantry people when you go to other countries, and you're kind of.
You can be best boys with your battle buddy, but one of you takes a hit, they're calling for one guy.
Yeah.
And that's you.
Yeah. And it's, it's that weird thing, just wearing all those different hats. And it was like, man, I'm really good, really good at this.
You're excellent at it.
I'm pretty good at, like rapport building in other countries and all these things. But then it didn't really hit me, until like, at home, I do my work thing and I come home and I'm like, once I walk through the door, I'm like, Dad, everything else is done. Like, my kids and my, my spouse and my family, like that was it, the dogs. And then life kind of throws you that curveball, and then you find yourself, sitting in a house by yourself, and you're like, man, and when it hit me was, I finally was like, you know what, man, I got to put myself out there. And I got on, Bumble or Field or something like that and start like typing up my profile. And I'm like trying to type it up. And I'm just like, dude, I don't know what to say, because everything was like, we, and I was like, oh, there's not a we. And I was like, what do I like to do? Like, what, so I'm like kind of like dealing with that. And I'm like, man, I just don't really, I don't know, man. And so I think, getting out there to UHP in a weird way, I went out there to get away from all that and just focus on my fitness, which, it was great, but it also just kind of made me, take that time to like kind of figure out, who I am to an extent, like I think I've kind of not given up, but I'm at peace with the fact that like, I don't know, I don't really need a label. I don't need, if I'll ever find that and figure out like who I am or what my hobbies are. I'm just kind of like, I'll enjoy what I enjoy. And at the end of the day, like when I die, if somebody says like, oh, he was a pretty good dude, like that's who I am. That's all I want, man. Like I want to be a good dude. And, that's kind of it. I'm in the process right now of, kind of getting ready to move and do all these things. And it's kind of funny because
you close next week.
Yeah. I close on Wednesday. But in Arkansas, I talked to a couple of dudes who've kind of gone through my situation, and we, they gave their perspectives and stuff like that. And then, one day after one of our little fire pit sessions or whatever, like I'm walking away, and there's a chick in the course, Christina, who's, super, super smart, like almost uncomfortably so, like she's just really, really well read, well spoken, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of, in a weird way, like I admire her for kind of pulling me aside and like giving me her 2 cents, because I mean, let's be honest, like I don't have the most, inviting demeanor most of the time, like I have like resting asshole face, like I'm not the easiest dude to just come up and be like, hey, I'm going to talk to you about your life.
You don't look like a pushover, right?
So, but man, she kind of put herself out there and like, just was like, hey, I'm not, I just want to kind of give you my 2 cents or whatever. And it kind of, it really struck kind of a chord. She was like, I kind of went through something before, when I left the military and I was trying to figure out who I was. And she's like, she's like, I didn't know anything. She's like, I didn't even know what my favorite color was. She's like, so I literally just, she's like, and I don't know if she's metaphorically speaking, maybe it was metaphorical, but, she's like, I took, a canvas and I would just like, get some paint and I would paint it a color. And then I would like look at it for a couple of days and I'd be like, I don't really like that color. And then I'd get another one. And at that moment, it kind of hit me, but it was, probably on my drive home from Arkansas, like while I'm trying to, driving 100, trying to get through Oklahoma as fast as I can. And
get me back to God's country.
Yeah. And I'm just, so it's like, I'm just overthinking everything because I'm an overthinker. And like, it kind of like struck me. And I was like, man, I'd been looking for places while like right before I left. And part of the reason I looked for a new place was like, I started trying to decorate my house, to me. But, it's this 3,700 square foot, like big house, it's like white stone and it's just not really my vibe, but I never really thought about it before until I like started buying art and stuff. And then I get ready to put some of it on the wall and I'm just like, this just doesn't match the vibe of the house. And then so on that drive back, I'm like, dude, that's kind of what she was talking about. Like kind of the same thing where, so now I'm just like, you know what, dude, like I've got this condo, I've got these things, I'm getting new furniture, I'm getting new artwork. I'm just gonna, basically use that as my, as my canvas, so to speak, and hang some stuff. If I like it, then cool, it'll stay. If I don't, it's gone.
And I don't want this to sound like woo, but you were trying to redecorate a place that had a lot of history.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're trying to paint shit.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But it still stinks.
Yep. 100%.
Whereas like you're going to go into this other container that's got all new energy that hasn't been compromised by any of the old shit.
Yeah.
So you can align yourself more effectively there.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked, man. I mean, it's still a weird situation to be in, finding yourself at, 43 and, hopping on dating sites or whatever. But
so those are two good takeaways. Is the third something that you can incorporate into Hood Rat in your gym, or like, do you want to pursue that trainer fitness?
So that's kind of where, I guess because I do still have a few years left of, like active, time or whatever. I've still got a little bit of time to, kind of really figure out what I want to full-time commit to, because right now, like I would love to, and I really want to, I guess
any of the agencies will pick you up if you want to do something.
That's also true, and I mean, I've looked at that, but I'm also like, I spent so much time.
You're going right back overseas.
Yeah. juggling the family and juggling time with kids and stuff. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that unless something really fun pops off, then it may be a different conversation. But right now, I'm like, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do. Oh, I'm good. Thanks, man. But, I definitely would like to do it. I really just want to find a way to, if I can find a way to kind of incorporate it and to bring in kind of like a little bit more of a community aspect and make it something fun, make it something accessible. Cause I think that's really the hard thing for me is like fitness is still, for whatever reason, man, is just still one of those things that seems so inaccessible for a lot of people, And
why do you think that is?
I mean, I think if anything, man, I think it's just, fear or almost like embarrassment or
because you can start with just walking.
Oh, 100%. Most people should.
Right. And do you think it's a matter of it's crawl, walk, run, and most people want to start sprinting.
Yep.
Right. And so, well, if I can't sprint, then why am I doing it?
100%.
And it's like, well, you have to do the work. If you want to get good at the room clearing, you need to know which end of the rifle is the dangerous end.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
like this is like
same as everything.
It takes professionals 20 years to get to that unit level.
Yep.
And then you're just throwing the chem lights.
Yeah. Well, then you've got, and the thing is unfortunately there are a lot of just bad trainers out there and bad advice out there who do the same thing. It's like, oh, hey, you want to lose weight? Well, here, cut all these calories. And then, oh yeah, hey, I need you to start running, 5 miles a week. And it's like, dude, I haven't stepped off my couch in 6 years. You know what I mean? Like that's not a thing. Like people need to crawl, walk, run. I mean, I do the same thing. Like with people that I know, if I'm like, hey bro, you haven't really done much in a while. Let's like start off slow. Like, and you have to tell people sometime, like, hey man, these first couple of workouts or first few weeks might seem really freaking easy, but like this is just to kind of get an idea of where you're at, and we can go from there. But everything should be tailored to a specific individual, to what they need, to what they want, to their desires. And then it should constantly be changing, like if somebody
has to,
or my big thing is like, so many people are like, oh, if you want to lose weight, you got to run. Or, oh, if you cardio is slow state running, slow state cardio. And I'm like, dude, I rarely ever run. Like I run for an ACFT when the Army makes me. But like outside of that, like most of my cardio comes from sprints or, an echo bike or, things like that. I'm not out just jogging to jog, you know what I mean? Like one, it's just not that great for your body.
It's horrible for your body.
And two, like most people just don't need it. You can get better cardio.
Well, also just like from an evolutionary biological standpoint, we were only running if we were being chased.
Yeah. And I still follow that philosophy. You should, I better be chased, and you better be really big.
I run as fast as the dog chasing me.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm only going to run until I can get to the firearm that I forgot, or whatever somehow is not on me. But outside of that, like I'm not running.
100%. That's really funny.
But yeah, man, I think, I'm not 100% sure, if I wanted to, because I love, I like helping people, I go out every once in a while, and, unfortunately in this weird kind of world that we live in now, there are people out there that have been, recently kind of looking for like medical training and stuff like that. So occasionally, guys will run, ranges or whatever, and I'll hop on.
Speaking of that, I have one of those things coming up that I want to bring you into in October.
Okay.
So I'll talk to you about that offline, but thanks. That's a good reminder.
But so I like doing that stuff too, just kind of getting out and kind of, teaching a little bit of, practical medical application and stuff like that. And just kind of like giving people, a little help in, different areas of their life, like, I don't think that I'm a firm believer in, especially fitness, like fitness should be fun. If it's not, nobody's going to want to do it. Like if I tell you like, hey bro, all right, here's your plan. And you look at it and you're like, dude, I hate this exercise and that, like, I should have known that already. Like, so my first question is always like, hey, what do you like to do? Like, what's your idea of cardio? Because if you tell me like, hey, I hate the exercise bike, well, I'm not going to program it, because you're not going to do it. You may do it for a couple of weeks, and then you're going to be like, man, fuck, this is stupid.
Yeah, but then there's things I hate that now I love.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I mean, there are those things that, occasionally you kind of have to like mix them in, like, because I mean,
well, you want to shock the system. And it's like, everything is like, there's going to be like really great. And you see this with therapy too. You see this with like working out for the first time. You're going to have like really great gains, and then it's going to plateau, because that's your body resetting to its new normal.
Yeah.
Right. You used to live at a 1, and now your body it got itself to living at a 3, but it's got to get used to living at a 3 for a while.
Oh yeah.
Before it can jump to a 4. Right.
Yeah.
And then you're a plateau, and then and then you change things up, and now you're going to go to a 5, and then you're going to hang at 5 for a little bit, and then you're going to get, once that's normal, now you go to 7.
Yeah.
But you're not going 1 to 9.
Well, I think like finding those exercises that you don't like because they're uncomfortable versus you just don't like them because you don't really, like, so it's like for me, like running to me is just, I mean, it is quasi uncomfortable now, but I also just don't enjoy it, and if I can find a way around that, then I will.
Yeah. What is the 20% that gives you the 80%?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm getting my VO2 max. I'm getting my heart rate up. I'm getting, high heart rate variability. I'm getting the, cardiorespiratory benefit.
Yeah.
I'm saving my knees.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I mean, realistic.
I'll do an assault bike. I'll do a row. I'll do a ski erg. I'll do like a 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 on ski erg, rower, assault bike, whatever, put 5 cardio machines in a row.
Yeah.
And go 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50.
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah, it sucks.
But it's,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go the other way. Start at 10, go to 50.
It's kind of fun, though. I mean, that's the thing is like you find things that, yeah, they suck, but they're also a little bit fun if you can
But it sucks to know you have to do it. It's really sucks while you're doing it.
Oh, yeah.
But afterwards, you feel fucking so fantastic.
Do you feel that way after a long run?
No,
I never.
Never.
I get done. I'm just like,
I'm like, that hurt.
Well, I'm glad that's over. Like,
and now my knees are gonna swell for the next 3 days.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, not to mention, like most people run at a pace, and I mean, I do too. Like I run at a conversational pace because if I get a little bit too fast, I'm like, you know what? I'm slowing down. You know what I mean? I just don't.
I'm not built like a runner.
No. Yeah.
I'm built like the guy that only has to punch you once. You know what I mean?
You're definitely built like that guy. I am, unfortunately, probably more built like a runner, but I've always had like that misconception. People are either like, "Oh, you look like you're a really good runner."
You
like,
are
no,
the quintessential operator build. 5'10".
Like, you look really strong, and I'm like, no, I'm not really that strong. I'm like I don't know.
You're pretty fucking strong, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm decent.
You've always been.
I'm like kind of, you know.
Talk to me about, so for those people who want to check this out,
right?
It's an online application. Is there a cost associated? Like, are there scholarships? Can people be sponsored?
Yes. So a little bit of everything. So there are, if you still got your GI Bill, there are ways to get the GI Bill to cover it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can also use, if guys are still, or people are still in the military, you can use whatever it's called now, but kind of like the
almost like a school.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
They basically I can't remember what it's called now, but they where they basically pay for you to go to school.
Is it a billet?
It's not.
I don't know.
It's, yeah.
I don't know.
It was like cool or something for a while, but it might have changed. But basically, like it's like the GI Bill except for active people,
right,
so you're not having
to
waste your GI Bill.
Yeah.
So you can get paid for by that.
It's like the same as this thing is like a driving school or a shooting school or a
medical. Yeah, kind of, but it's like a civilian, so you do have to kind of apply through it. It's because it is a civilian kind of course, so it's a little bit of a different process. So you would go through like the education, like branch or whatever.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, yeah. So you'd go through them. And then they would give you, approved.
Right, so it's not like going to like Pathfinder or Sniper.
Yeah, it's a little different. Yeah, it's not an ATAR
secret
school.
squirrel schools. That
Yeah. And there's also, you've got Team Red, White, and Blue, which also does scholarships.
Yeah,
that's actually how I went. I got a Team Red, White, and Blue scholarship. I guess I should have given them some love. Yeah, I did. But everything
that is one of the most. That is an underdog organization.
I wasn't full, like I didn't know a whole lot about it until I reached out to UHP, and they were like, hey, yeah, like fill out a quick little online application, super quick, through Team Red, White, and Blue, and I joined.
They had that great like Red campaign for a while, like on Red Fridays, and no one knew it was associated with.
No, I didn't know. But yeah, they do a lot of stuff. Actually, there's a lot of stuff here in Austin.
Team. They sponsor a bunch of people to go down and do assisted therapy. They've been great.
Yeah, they're doing. I know they do a lot of
Mission 22. I think they helped with
a lot of what do you call it, the like Spartan races, and they do a lot of that. A lot of it is physically, physical activity type stuff. Yeah. But
I don't know who handles their PR.
Yeah, I don't either. But
that is a great organization that needs more recognition.
100%.
And I'm happy to give them a shout out because they do great work.
Yeah, so that's actually how I went, was through them.
But can you pay out of pocket?
I'm assuming you can.
No one's saying no to money.
I was gonna say, yeah, no one in my class did. I think pretty much everyone.
How big are the classes?
So I think they fluctuate. I had we have 15 in my class.
Oh, that's perfect.
So yeah, it was a pretty good little group.
Now, are there other classes also going through, or is it just your class?
Just us. Yeah.
Wow.
Just us. So they also have an integrative health coach course that they just started. There wasn't one going on while I was there, but they've got that, and they're getting ready to stand up the nutrition course. And they're talking about trying to expand in the next, handful of years, and trying to do like a, maybe like a massage therapy course, and, a few other things that are kind of interrelated.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a cool thing, man. They're looking at trying to grow it enough to where they can start, doing.
Do we know what their on their Instagram or any of that fun stuff is?
Yeah. So their Instagram it's UHP, or University of Health and Performance. That's actually where I got reminded about them, was on Instagram. I saw it like pop up in my feed, and I hit them up, and got an interview, and then was basically like, yeah, man, I tried to go back in the day, and they were like, oh my God, when can you come out? And the rest is history.
How did it feel leaving it?
It definitely was one of those, like a lot of schools, man, you leave and it's like, bittersweet, you kind of, just
there are
that
definitely some schools I was happy to leave.
There's more than a few of those, but you've kind of built that, camaraderie with people and kind of, so you're excited to leave. You're excited to kind of see what people are doing because everybody's on their own journey. You've got there, we've started doing, we do like weekly kind of follow-ups to kind of see where it's
like
going.
Integration type of thing.
Yeah.
That's great.
So they've got, once you leave, you're tied in with the,
is there like, do you get a class number?
No, there's not a class number. They didn't go quite that military on us, but it
was class 602.
But yeah, there's like the the Veterans Future Foundation, and you kind of do like these VFF, like they have weekly calls where people are kind of talking about like their wins, so you're kind of sharing in people's successes. So you kind of you hear that some of these people are doing well and doing good things. Because everybody shows up on a different path, and some of the folks already kind of had their business going, kind of, and then just kind of, grew it a little bit once they left. Some people are, leaving, starting from scratch.
Right.
There are a few classes in there, while you're there on the kind of the business side of the house and, stuff
good.
like that. So
do they get into like, marketing or website or recruitment?
Yes. Yeah, they work on that a little bit.
Great.
And they're hoping to grow the program enough to where they can start, actually doing, kind of like grants and stuff like that for graduates to kind of help them get started. It's not.
I wonder if there's a way that they could almost have like someone from each class could almost like go out to like the Hermosi school, like the SKOOL one out in Vegas, where he's like, they help, because that's how he made all his money, like, or initially, but now his money makes money.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, he was a gym guy. You know what I mean? He was like, I'll turn your gym profitable. I had Kyle Fields on. He was running a gym, like small group exercises in New York, was going super successful, like all kinds of clientele, hit COVID, lost everything, was like, had his like, had, I don't know, maybe it was down to his like, maybe it was like last 10,000, saw a Hermosi ad. It was like, we guarantee $100,000 in 90 days or your money back. He said, and I took that program and I followed it step by step. What he said to do, I did it. If I didn't like it, I did it. He's like, we made 120 grand in 90 days. He's like, it turned our entire business model around. He's like, we didn't understand the business of doing business.
Right.
We didn't realize how much money we were leaving on the table. We didn't realize that in just doing this, that this could be replicated and sold as and it was just like a really interesting framework.
That's the one, that business thing is definitely a completely.
I see this. Everything I know about business, I have learned from complete trial and error and mostly failing.
Yeah.
Like failure has been one of my greatest teachers, but I don't care how good you are at doing something. If you don't know how to sell it and market it and manage it and invoice it and have good client relations and have a legitimate website and know how to do like basic business practices, you're not going to have a business.
Yeah. Yep. No,
and it also needs to be something that you are living, breathing, consumed by all day, every day. No matter what, you would rather die than not do this.
Yeah.
I wake up every day unemployed, and I at least 100 times a day go vacillating between I can't believe this is working and I'm totally fucked.
Yeah.
I can't believe this is working and I can't believe I'm doing this. But it's so great. It's so great.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely that that high.
Yeah. You have your t-shirt thing. How's that going?
I mean, it's going all right.
Rats?
Yeah.
Right?
So Hood Rat Fitness, and Gorilla Zulu. So yeah, I mean,
would you turn Gorilla Zulu into the fitness vertical?
So yeah, so Gorilla Zulu I kind of use a little bit for the t-shirt stuff, and then typically when I do like those medical courses or whatever, I do that kind of
under
Gorilla Zulu. And then I'm kind of in the process of kind of moving, Hood Rat Fitness into like Hood Rat Fitness by Gorilla Zulu. You know, you're talking about marketing and stuff like that.
Dude, I had to have, I'm doing it right now, just like a whole restructure of everything where it's like knowledge of trust and there's multiple LLCs because things have to go under different things for different reasons. And
I love the Hood Rat Fitness name. And, you know, anytime people ask me about it and I kind of explain, you know, kind of where it comes from, everyone kind of can, you know, like get on board with it and kind of see like why I named it what it is. But, you know, you also have a lot of people who just see it and they're just like, that's the dumbest name ever. Yeah, I don't know how many comments I've had on Instagram where it's like, what asshole thought of this name? And I'm like, yeah, it was actually this asshole, but, you know, thanks. You know, it's just, but, you know, it's like, hey, man, you know, from, you know, no matter where you come from, you know, no matter your background, no matter what, you know, the military is a perfect example. Like, dude, I mean, look, you were talking about our squad earlier. Like, dude, we were all from completely different walks of life, but we had such a bond and we had like so many things, more things in common than we had different, you know, at the end of the day, which is, you know, something I think right now, especially in our current, you know, climate in this country, like people are failing more and more every day to realize that like we have so much more in common than we have different, you know, but everyone hangs on the differences. And it's like, hey man, like at the end of the day, dude, we all just want to do hood rat shit with our friends.
If you just put everyone in a room and took social media out of it,
you wouldn't know.
There wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, no, everyone would get along great. Yeah, I was at the skating rink the other night, which, yeah, no, that's kind of weird. I haven't been skating in a really long time, but a friend had a birthday party there and like a 90s
still
theme.
Just people skating in a big circle.
Yeah,
in the middle,
something still the same. Changed. I mean, but they, you know, I mean, there's some people that can really good on skates, man. It's kind of intimidating.
I'm not one of them.
Oh no, I didn't even put them on because I was like, you know what?
I still stopped crashing into the wall.
That's exactly what I said. I was like, oh, I can skate. I don't know.
If there's a little thing where you get off the ring, I crash into the right hand side, and then I just kind of like hand myself around.
Yeah, I mean, I've started like longboarding and, you know, doing cruiser skateboards a little bit. I can't stop those either. I just have to like jump off and keep my feet and knees together. So,
try and keep my knees in place. Just try to keep my knees between my ankles and my hip has been a challenge of late. So
yeah. But, you know, it's like, man, you just look around and you see like, you know, skating rink, perfect example. Like you watch these people just going in circles, man, and they're all doing the same thing. They've all got this thing in common, you know, like just having the freaking times of their lives. But they go home and get on freaking social media and hate each other. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it's insane to me.
Did I send you the Tom Segura thing where he was just like cracking up laughing because there's like some lady who has a coffee thing and she's like, follow me while I'm a 27-year-old like coffee thing. And she goes to the gym and she says, I start off my day boxing and then I do some weights and the comments are just all hate. They're like, delete your account. From Australia, we hate you. It's just like people just going hard in the paint on this poor lady who's just making coffee. But it's almost like become a thing just to like hate on her. And it's like, but oddly, like that hate is almost like a show of love because it's like how we show our appreciation. It's
right.
You know, it's like when Bruce Springsteen comes out on stage and everyone goes, boo. And I was like, why are they booing him? They're not, they're saying Bruce.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? You know, Mike Tyson said something about like, you know, too many people are on, you know, social media and, you know.
Yeah, that's why he punched that kid in the face.
Yeah, you never been punched in the mouth. Like, man, there's a lot of people running around now. And I'm not condoning violence, although I will, but I'm not at this present time. But it is, you know, sometimes just like, man, I don't know, man.
Sometimes violence, despite what your mother told you, sometimes violence is the end.
Yeah, some people just, you know, I'm not saying go crazy, but some people just need to be punched in the mouth. Like, and things would be a little different.
I cannot agree more. Dude, I fucking love you. I end every podcast by asking my guests 5 questions.
Oh, here we go.
I'm going to ask you yours right now. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Question number 1.
B, final answer.
Oh. Aliens, fact or fiction?
Aliens, man. I'm still sticking with fiction. I know there's more and more stuff coming out there. And what I really want there to be aliens, but I just don't think that we actually.
My favorite answer to this is Elon's answer. He's like, I really want to believe, but if they're out there, they're being very subtle.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want to believe they're aliens, and I would love to hang out, and you know we could rapport building and but
buddy of mine's a firefighter. Shout out to Buzz Busby. He asked me over to the firehouse for dinner because it's his turn to cook. So I'm sitting there with all the guys. We're all like shooting the shit and having a great time. And he's telling me this story that one of the guys there was an accident, fire thing. Guy is in the car with his dog. He's going to get rushed to the hospital. He's got this like little like Chihuahua type thing. So the guy is like, as he's in the ambulance, he's like, man, I'm so worried about my dog. And one of the fighters is like, oh, don't worry, I got him. I'm going to take care of him. Bring him back to the firehouse. LT's like, don't let him run around. But yeah, everyone loves the little thing, so it's running around. Yeah. Fucking dog jumps off the roof of the firehouse. Right? Someone catches it on their cell phone. Right? So I'm like, so you're telling me that just some random passerby can be there at the exact time and date that this random dog that wasn't supposed to be there jumps off the roof, but we don't have any like actual photos of like aliens.
Yeah, 100%. Right? Okay. Yeah, with as many cameras and satellites.
The dog was okay, and by the way. The dog was okay.
Oh, thank God.
No, dog was not injured. It had a little wobble for a little bit, but the dog was fine. And,
okay, that was going to completely change.
But literally jumped off the 3rd-story building of the firehouse downtown.
I mean, I think the dog had an angel or something.
Had something.
But aliens still no.
Okay. Question number 2. What is a piece of art, a book, a movie, a TV show, could actually just be a piece of art that after you saw it for the first time kind of like had a pivotal moment on your life? And what was it?
Trying to think of there's a lot of, I'm a philosophy nerd. So there's a lot of philosophical things that I've read, but I don't know, like, as weird as this is going to be, I think, growing up watching, like gangster movies and stuff, like probably, shaped me in weird ways. Obviously I grew up like a real big, fan of hip hop and Southern rap and that kind of stuff. But growing up where I grew up, I think, watching like Scarface, just, Al Pacino back then, and just kind of the, being able to kind of like, one, the rags to riches story was amazing, and then 2, just kind of that, also just all like being able to see that like excess at some point is like not cool. You know what I mean? Like, and then once you get to a point where
careful you wish for.
Exactly. It's like there is too much of a good thing, and then you get to a point where, you start kind of turning your back on your friends. And I get it. It's not real. But, as a kid, it kind of felt real, and it was like, oh my God, when he got killed, it was like, if he wouldn't have killed, Manny or whatever, he could have helped him stay alive. And, and it was just those little things, so it's, that loyalty, that trust.
Loyalty, trust, betrayal. Like when he sees what happens to the Colombians, he's like, okay, so that I need to be ruthless if I'm going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of lessons in that movie.
All of that, man, was a big thing. And then, I think
that new movie never gets made today, by the way.
Oh no, absolutely not.
And if it does, it's like a Quentin Tarantino version where it's tongue in cheek.
Yeah. God, that's such a good movie. Like,
it's a great movie.
Like, I could still watch it. The problem is it's pretty long, so it takes, you have to have.
There are some.
You have to have a block of time.
Do you listen to the Rewatchables? Do you know the Rewatchables? No. The podcast, the Rewatchables. I'll send you. It's a podcast, and basically they're like, "Oh, this movie's on. Yeah, I'm in for 20 minutes," and they have like best scenes. It's great. Shout out to the Rewatchables. Question number 3. Oh, sorry. The answer was
Scarface.
Scarface. Yeah. Question number 3. Clint Eastwood is directing a movie about your life. Who is he casting to play you?
Ooh. Oh man.
This will be good.
Oh God, this is good.
If you say Theo Von.
So Theo Von could be a possibility, but I, quite honestly, I think it's got to be Theo Von or Riff Raff. Yeah. So Riff Raff and I have a history, I guess. Not a real history, not anything that in depth, but so last Afghanistan rotation, kind of, not too long before the drawdown, we got a new truck, or a truck that got fixed, and the captain begrudgingly let me name it. And so I named the truck Riff Raff. And So anyone who follows my Instagram, Gorilla Zulu, or even, my personal, if you know me personally, I've got a handful of pictures on there from that, from that deployment. I had a grill made, so I was, rocking a gold grill out on missions quite a bit. And,
I was actually wondering, I had an over-under if you were showing up with a grill today.
It's here. It's just not in my mouth.
I remember when you got your first one. You were so proud.
So I was like rocking that. And I went out a lot in like Jordans, Jordan 1, mids and some like white sun, just about as obnoxious as you could be. And there were those times where I'm like, I'm going to die because of these mirrored sunglasses, like this is how I go out, but I didn't. So I'm still here.
Here you are.
But we named that vehicle after Riff Raff, and we get back from the deployment and somehow that picture made its way to Riff Raff's like manager at the time. And he was coming to Texas to do a show up in Dallas. And I get a thing from his manager and was like, hey man, like Riff wants to meet you. So there was a picture of my friend and I and, next to the vehicle. And I was like, hey, dude, you're next to the vehicle with me. Like, this is a picture they saw. Like, you want to go to Dallas and go to a Riff Raff concert. And so he's like, wow, shit, why not, man? So we got like VIP passes to go to the Riff Raff show, went and hung out like in the tour bus and got some pictures with Riff Raff, and he's like, oh man, you're the guy that had the tank, and he's talking about the tank. And then like, where it gets really kind of weird is like, this was right before COVID made its way to the US. And he was the first person, and if you know Riff Raff, if you don't, you should look him up. Fantastic, fantastic person, really fucking hilarious. But like, he was the first person, like he starts talking to me about, he's like, man, what do you think about this coronavirus? Because we were getting ready to go to Greece for like a J set, and it ended up getting canceled because of COVID.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But most people in the US at that time were like, it's not a thing. Yeah. Not Riff Raff. Riff Raff's talking to me. So here we are.
Had contingency plans.
Yeah. I'm like talking to Riff Raff about coronavirus before, COVID hit the US. So, and then I met him again at another show in New Braunfels. But, it's kind of a sidebar. But Riff Raff, I think Riff Raff
would portray you well.
I think he would. I think he could hold it down.
I got it. Question number 4. You never disappoint. You never. I love hearing your stories. You can spend 2 weeks in any fictional universe. Where are you going?
Something popped into my mind. I definitely cannot say. Maybe I'll say it when the thing's not recording because you'll find it funny, but I don't want to put it on. I don't want to put it into the world.
Give me the second one. It was number 2.
Man, any fictional universe. I mean, what's kind of weird is I was talking about this recently. There's something bizarrely attractive about like living in like a dystopia, like an actual dystopia, not like like right now everybody's like, oh,
like Last of Us,
we're going through like this weird. I actually haven't watched that, but
pretty good. Did you play the video game?
No,
neither did I, but this was pretty good. Last video game I played was like Shinobi in 19.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had like a Sega Saturn back in the whatever, and I've got a PlayStation 5, but I never play it. It's like the kids do, but yeah, man, I'm trying to think of what my favorite. Or? That would be kind of cool. Just any sort of, maybe like I Am Legend or something. You know what I mean? Like just
they're making a sequel.
Oh no, I did not.
Yeah, with Michael B. Jordan.
Oh, nice. Oh, that would be a cool universe too, man. Like Wakanda. That'd be pretty dope.
Wakanda be very cool.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Could I have like the suit from Wakanda, but then in a dystopia? That would be I would do that.
I'll tell you what.
That would be pretty sweet.
Marvel should call us.
Right? Yeah.
We got a story.
I think we can rebuild that franchise right there. But I mean, like, just think about it. Like, dystopia, you're like, yeah, it kind of sucks, but like, you can do what you want.
You want that because we've all been circularly hoping for that.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all fairly certain we're going to experience that in our life.
Zombieland, bro. That Zombieland.
Yeah.
Zombieland. That's it. There we go.
That's good.
Zombieland.
I like Zombieland.
Yeah. I gotta go with Zombieland. That'd be fun. And I'd want like a If I could have like a Woody Harrelson sidekick, that'd make it even that much better.
Like the nub, the guns and shit. Yeah. I don't want to be the nub guy.
Yeah, I don't want to be the nub guy, but having him as a homie would be cool.
I'd be the Woody Harrelson guy.
Oh yeah,
he's the best guy. Last question, and we'll get you out of here on this. It's a little personal. What's the best part about being a dad?
I mean, I think the best part of being a dad is just really just the, like the curiosity of it all. You know what I mean? Like from
like through their eyes?
Yeah, just kind of seeing like, they're getting a little older now, so things kind of shock them less or whatever. But just kind of like watching them learn and watching them grow and really like turn into like humans. And that kind of sounds weird, but like when they're small, it's just kind of like they have a personality, but just kind of watching that evolve and like seeing what kind of people they turn into.
Yeah.
It's just it's so much fun.
How scary and or happy does it make you when you see them doing things that they know they got from you?
Luckily, both my kids are, I would say smarter, but if not smarter, they're definitely more well behaved than I was. And we've they've had a little more structure, and probably owe that more to their mother than me, most likely. She did a great job molding them as kids or whatever. And so they're definitely better decision makers than I was at that, at their age. But there are those moments, especially with my daughter, which is, oddly enough, but she definitely has my temperament a little more so than my son. My son is very, he's very chill. I mean, both my kids are chill. They're both quasi-sensitive. My son is just like, man, he's just a, he's 15 now, so he's going to kill me, but he's like a beautiful person, dude. He's just a beautiful soul. Like he loves everybody. He's just so nice. He's kind. My daughter is the same way. She's also very kind, loves animals, all that kind of stuff. She's 11. But she also kind of has that little bit of, like sometimes I'm like, I see a little me in her sometimes, and I'm like,
shadow self,
man, like she definitely, could have that little streak. But yeah, man, it's just, I don't know, man, every day it's, again, they're older now, so it's not as much as when they were little, but it's just every day is, something new, man, watching them kind of learn things and try new things. And, you and I have talked before, about just our youth and stuff like that. And I think, not knocking, where I came from or, my parents or those who raised me or anything else, but like my childhood wasn't really much of a childhood, like looking back. And so kind of being able to see like them do some of the things, like actually being able to be kids, which was a little hard, early on. And I think that's where their mom, came in and was really just, because for me, I was like, I don't really know.
You didn't have any reference.
I didn't. Yeah. Like I grew up way too fast, like, so trying to curb those expectations while also maintaining, some sort of stability. Cause for me, it was, I didn't really have a childhood, but I also didn't really have any rules, so until I got to the military, like I had a front door on my bedroom. Like I came and went as I wanted, like I did whatever I wanted, didn't have curfews, didn't have rules, didn't have anything. So like trying to find that happy medium where it's like, all right, well, I have to implement some kind of rules, but then I also don't want to be like, like have my kids so scared, in their own home that they can't, so you just really kind of playing that, that game. But man, it's, I don't know, man, it's always fun, dude. Like kids are fucking amazing.
Yeah. There's a great, and Rogan's talked about this, and it's hard when you come from backgrounds like ours because you want to give your kids everything, right? But like, how do you give them everything, but also you want them to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, right?
Right.
Because you need that, but you want just enough that they got to prove something to people, but not so much that they have like a drug or an alcohol problem.
Right.
And so Bruce Lee had this quote that if you are going to give your kids the gifts you never got, be also sure that you teach them the lessons you were never taught.
Yeah, that's pretty profound.
And so I wrote that one down for.
So yeah, we used to, I mean, I say laugh, you know, I can laugh about it now and joke about it a little bit, but when my kids were a little younger, we would go home to where I grew up, and, you know, anytime before we went, because again, especially my son, he's super sensitive and stuff like that. And, you know, I'd literally have to sit down with him before we left and be like, all right, look, man, like, things are solved there with violence. Like, that's how everything is still solved. You know, it's just like, if you say something someone doesn't like, they can be your best friend, but they may punch you in the mouth. Your cousin will punch you in the mouth. And, you know, and he's just kind of, and I'm like, look, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That's just how things are. And I just want you to be prepared for that. Like, not saying it's going to happen or it's not going to happen, but like, you need to, you know, kind of manage your expectations in a way. And, you know, I think, so for me, you know, kind of like giving them what, you know, everything I wanted to give them, but then also being able to kind of like occasionally like go home. And then, you know, my parents are kind of out of the neighborhood that I grew up in, but I still, you know, I still drive through there. You know, and I passed by the blocks that I used to hang out on, and, you know, the car wash where I lost my best friend, and, you know, some places like that. And it's just kind of, so it's a little bit of a cathartic, you know, experience for me. And it's also kind of like allowing my kids to kind of see that, like, man, you know, life can be a lot different, you know, than it is in, you know, North Austin or Cedar Park or, you know, whatever. But yeah,
man. You have to inform that outlook so they don't see that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, though, is I love, you know, luckily I do love how humble, you know, they are. They're extremely humble, because I'm like, man, I don't know, you know, I like to think I would have been the same person growing up in different circumstances, but, you know, you never know. You know, I don't know if I would have grown up the way they've grown up, if I would be as humble as they are. You know, I'd like to think I would, but, you know, who knows? I could have been, you know, I could have been that rich asshole running around, you know, just, you know, causing different kinds of havoc, you know, instead of the fun kind, the obnoxious kind.
I think we're doing okay.
Yeah.
We're both works in progress, but
oh man, constantly.
We'll get there eventually, right?
One day we'll grow up.
Christopher Gregory, ladies and gentlemen, if people would like to learn more, is there any certain place you would like to send them?
Yeah, I mean, check out on Instagram. I am at gorilla_Zulu. And then I've got a website, hoodratfitness.com or gorillazulu.com. They'll both take you to the same place. You guys find me on Instagram, shoot me a message if you got any questions. If you're in the Austin area and want to hang out, I'm always around.
Hit them up.
But man, it's been real, man. I'd love hanging out with you every time I see you.
Fucking love you, brother.
I think this is the first time we haven't had drinks together, but you know, it's good.
Yeah, every once in a while. Well, we can do this.
We can. Look at us. We're functioning.
Love you, brother.
All right, you too, man.
Cheers.
Later.